This video is an outtake of my trip to the United States. If you wish to see the full documentary about my overall experiences, you can watch it if you like. This video goes deeper in some of the places I visited. This video is a mix of reused and brand new footage. Enjoy! Our last destination of our Detroit visit is arguably the biggest of them all, the Henry Ford Museum and the adjacent Greenfield Village. The Henry Ford is a museum that celebrates over 2 centuries of American industry and innovation. The museum displays all kinds of machinery, farming equipment, and different forms of transportation, like planes, trains, and of course, automobiles. The cars shown in the museum are not all exclusively made by the Ford Motor Company. Instead, it shows a diverse collection of cars that are considered a milestone in the development of automobiles and the auto industry. All the cars on display have a story. Let's have a look around. Automobile safety wasn't really anyone's concern in the first half of the 20th century. You would be ridiculed if you got things like seatbelts in the 1950s, if you could get them at all. The car right in front of you was trying to change that. The 1957 Cornell Liberty safety car was an experiment done by Cornell Aeronautical Laboratory and the Liberty Mutual Insurance. It was a mutual search, 5 years starting in 1952, for creating the safest vehicle on the road and to design it in like a contemporary and attractive way. The car features numerous highly interesting safety measurements and designs that we take for granted today, but were revolutionary 70 years ago. For instance, the car has a panoramic windshield for 180-degree unobstructed view. It features soft interior materials and fabrics as opposed to the hard metals used around that time. The driver is sitting in the middle, so not to be too close to the sides of the car in case of an impact, and is also fully surrounded by wraparound padded console with a very early version of airbags. That was their way of keeping you in place. The driver operates airplane-like throttles instead of regular massive steering wheel that could impale you in case of an accident. The rear passengers have seat belts and also a very crude form of rear head restraints. These are little nets hanging from the ceiling so not to block the rearward visibility, like modern-day head restraints do. The doors are deliberately styled in an unusual way. Big holes were made where the door handles are so that they are recessed and do not stick out. The doors also open in a manner like you would open or fold your curtains, although they do tend to stick out a bit, which could be dangerous when you've just parked your car at the side of the road and a car passes by at very close distance. So much for safety. The exterior of the car is protected by a large energy-absorbing bumpers that wrap around all sides of the car, 20 years before they were officially mandated by the US government. Despite its contemporary looks and an effort to make safety a cool thing, the car was a cry in the wilderness. People were not yet ready and concerned about vehicle safety. It would take another 20 years or so before safety really became a public concern. And as expected, only one car was made. A deconstructed Ford Model T is an awesome way to show how complex the car actually is, despite being extremely simple compared to modern-day cars. Although there goes a lot of manufacturing and assembling into make it Tin Lizzy, the car was designed to be a once-in-a-lifetime purchase. Certain aspects of the car were designed in such a way to be logical and easy to understand for do-it-yourself repairs back in the home garage. Ford Model T. Buy once, enjoy it an eternity. Usually, a head of state rides in the most prestigious car the country makes, but what if you can choose between multiple fine cars? Throughout time, the US presidents rode in Cadillacs and Lincolns, but have the tendency to choose Lincoln over Cadillac. This is the most famous, or should I say infamous, Lincoln used by US President Kennedy on that fateful day in November 1963. The car started out as a regular 1961 Lincoln Continental, leased, not bought, from the Ford Motor Company for the modest sum of $500 per year, and from there to be extensively modified for presidential use. Alterations were done by renowned customization company Hess and Eisenhart, increasing the car's weight, safety measures, and value. The conversion cost around $200,000 back then. What you got for that kind of money was that it was extended, received third-row seating, a retractable standing platform for the Secret Service agents, retractable roof, a radio telephone, fire extinguisher, and first aid kit, among other things. Alas, certain design choices made the president more visible and therefore more vulnerable. After the assassination, the car was extensively modified again to make it even more safe and remained into service until 1967, when it was replaced with another Lincoln Continental from 1965. How do you make a truck look beautiful? They are utility vehicles after all, where function dictates the form. And yet, I laid my eyes upon the beauty that is a Dodge Airflow tanker truck, used by the Texaco Oil Company. This truck is from the Art Deco and aerodynamic days of the 1930s. Around the same time, Chrysler Corporation released the radical and revolutionary Chrysler Airflow, but without much success. And yet, Chrysler's Dodge division managed to build some 265 streamlined trucks just like this one. What strikes me the most is how you can take something so unattractive like a tank truck and wrap it up in such a round and flowing package. It looks more like a cargo van than a truck, and that is a compliment. The design of a truck like this didn't come out of thin air. More companies worked on aero trucks around that time, like rivaling Diamond T with their so-called Doodlebug tankers, or Rio with the Rio Speed Tanker series, sold in Australia. You'll probably know this one by now, and I was so happy to finally see it with my own eyes, a Tucker 48. The promising car made by a man with a lot of promises. And now it's time for a little shameless self-promotion, because check out my latest video I uploaded before this one that goes deep into the Tucker Torpedo story. And while I'm at it, expect to see a detailed video in the near future about the history behind this copper-colored car, the Chrysler Turbine Car. This vehicle made me chuckle, the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile, and I can assure you that it looks a lot bigger in real life than on video, but my girlfriend begs to differ. Jokes aside, the Henry Ford describes the car as the ultimate result of the American love for hot dogs and cars, come together on four wheels. This Wurstwagen was custom ordered by Oscar Mayer, maker of sausages and other meats. This vehicle is not new. As far back as the 1930s it was already a Wienermobile, built and designed for promotional purposes. It's like taking a hot dog cart to the next level. This sausage from 1952 rides on a Dodge chassis and was replaced by a newer version in 1958. But don't worry, with a bit of luck you can still catch one driving down the road even today. These were some of the many highlights of the museum, but let's get outside, to the Greenfield Village right next to the museum. The Greenfield Village was established alongside the Henry Ford in the 1930s. It's an open-air, living history museum, the first in the country, dedicated to show how Americans lived since the founding of the nation, and what the USA looked like at the time Henry Ford grew up. This includes workshops, stores, factories, farm fields, and of course, a steam train. As the incredible luck would have it, the annual Old Car Festival was being held at the park. Usually the park is a bit more quaint, but now from far and wide people gather with their classic rides, almost strictly from pre-Second World War times. Never have I ever seen so many cars in absolute pristine condition from the 1930s, mostly from the more affordable makes, like the Ford Motor Company. And never have I ever seen them still driving around like they are daily drivers, perfectly maintained and driven by the proud owners, most of them just as old as the cars, if not older. Along with its vintage backdrop, it really adds to the overall atmosphere, and I'm happy to witness it all. It was truly a beautiful experience, and every so often you think it's 1932 instead of 2022.